He was the quiet face of a dynasty, the calm voice in a storm of violence, the man who walked into frozen fields and made impossible moments look effortless. At 85, as his health faded and the noise of fame finally disappeared, Bart Starr carried truths he had never fully spoken. Truths shaped by pressure, humiliation, loyalty, and wounds that never healed. The world remembered him as Green Bay's perfect gentleman. Inside, he remembered the cost. He won more championships than almost any quarterback of his era. He became the emblem of discipline, intelligence, and clutch heroism. In the eyes of millions, he was the quarterback who never cracked. Yet behind that composed smile lived memories he never escaped. Coaches who never believed in him, teammates who doubted him, decisions that left him humiliated, and a final chapter that tasted more bitter than triumphant. This story is not about trophies. It is about the 5 hidden truths that defined his life. The moments that shaped the leader he became, the pressure that weighed on him long after the cheering stopped, the betrayals that left him silent, the expectations that crushed him, and the final disappointment that followed him into old age. Why did a man, praised for calm leadership, carry so much unspoken pain? Why did the quarterback, who defined Green Bay's glory, walk into his final years with unresolved bitterness? And how did these hidden truths shape the legend of Bart Starr? Bart Starr entered the NFL as an unnoticed name. He had no fanfare, no glowing predictions, no guarantees. He came from a modest background in Montgomery, where discipline was not an idea, but a necessity. At the University of Alabama, his career never reached the heights people expected. Injuries, benchings, and internal conflicts left him nearly invisible to professional scouts. When the Green Bay Packers selected him in the 17th round of the draft, it was almost an afterthought. Yet this quiet quarterback carried something the league could not measure: a mind built for pressure and a temperament that remained steady when the world shook. When he arrived in Green Bay, the team stood at its lowest point. The roster looked broken. The culture felt lost. Then Vince Lombardi arrived and demanded a new order. Lombardi pushed discipline to its limit. He wanted control structure and absolute obedience. Starr became the perfect instrument for that environment. His calm precision matched Lombardi's strict vision. His humility balanced the coach's fire. He evolved into the leader who reflected the very identity of the Packers: tough, focused, unyielding. Under that partnership, Green Bay built one of the greatest dynasties in football history. Starr's style of play did not resemble the flashy quarterbacks who came after him. He relied on intelligence. He managed the clock. He made the right read when everything collapsed. He played with a patience that turned chaos into clarity. His most defining moment came in the Ice Bowl, where the cold cut like glass and survival depended on courage. Starr led the final drive not with arrogance but with icy composure. That sneak into the end zone became a symbol of his career: calculated, fearless, precise. But greatness carried a weight people rarely understood. The expectations rose with every win. Every mistake felt larger. Every decision carried the judgment of a legendary coach and millions of fans. Starr learned to accept praise quietly and endure criticism silently. He led without theatrics. He inspired without speeches. His teammates trusted him because he never asked them to do anything he was not willing to shoulder himself. As the championships piled up, the myth of Bart Starr grew. Yet the reality behind the scenes revealed a man fighting through doubt. Lombardi did not always believe in him. Coaches questioned his toughness. Opponents underestimated him. That mixture of skepticism and pressure shaped the calm leader everyone admired. Each success became a response to those doubts. Each victory was proof that the quiet man from Alabama belonged in the harshest arena of American sport. His post-playing years brought a new challenge when he became head coach of the Packers. The public expected another era of dominance. Instead, he faced frustration, disappointment, and scrutiny. he had never known as a quarterback. Those later years planted the seeds of the bitterness that followed him late into life. The contrast between legendary player and struggling coach helped define the 5 hidden truths at the center of this story. Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi formed one of the most iconic partnerships in football history. Their bond created a dynasty. Their unity became the foundation of Green Bay's golden age. But behind the victories and the trophies lived a complicated truth that Starr rarely spoke about. Lombardi was the force that shaped him into a champion. He was also the source of one of the deepest pressures Starr ever carried. Lombardi entered Green Bay with an iron vision. He demanded discipline at a level the league had never seen. Practices felt like controlled combat. Mistakes were treated like crimes. Lombardi valued order, precision, and absolute commitment. Starr watched other quarterbacks crumble under that intensity. He survived because he absorbed every demand without protest. His calm became Lombardi's perfect counterbalance. Together they built a machine that ran on fear, respect, and flawless execution. But that partnership came with a cost. Lombardi did not initially trust Starr. He questioned Starr's toughness and leadership. In early meetings, he openly considered replacing him. He criticized him in front of teammates. He challenged him with a tone that felt personal. Starr learned to endure the remarks in silence. He believed that speaking back would break the fragile connection between them, so he swallowed the hurt and responded with performance. The turning point arrived during a film session when Lombardi rebuked Starr for an error that was not his fault. Starr waited until the room emptied. Then he approached Lombardi privately. He spoke with respect, but also with unexpected firmness. He told Lombardi the criticism had been unfair. The coach stared at him for a long, quiet moment and then nodded. From that day forward, Lombardi began to see Starr differently. He recognized the strength inside the soft-spoken quarterback. That moment of private confrontation became the foundation of their mutual respect. Yet, even after their bond strengthened, the pressure never eased. Lombardi expected perfection from Starr because he believed Starr could deliver it. Every championship drive, every audible, every third down decision carried the weight of Lombardi's expectations. Starr rose to the standard, but the burden carved emotional scars. He felt responsible not only for the team, but for Lombardi's vision. Victory brought relief more than joy. Failure felt like personal betrayal. The Ice Bowl revealed the full magnitude of that pressure. The temperature plunged, the field hardened into stone. The season hung on a single decision. Starr approached Lombardi with the idea for the quarterback sneak. Lombardi trusted him instantly and said, "Run it." Starr later admitted that this trust mattered more than the score. He feared letting Lombardi down more than he feared the cold or the defenders waiting on the goal line. The success of that final play immortalized them both. Yet it also locked Starr forever into the role of Lombardi's devoted executor. A role defined by precision and emotional restraint. After Lombardi left Green Bay, the silence between them grew. They respected each other deeply, but never fully shared what their relationship had cost. When Lombardi died in 1970, Starr carried a burden of unfinished understanding. He praised Lombardi publicly as the greatest coach he had ever known. Privately, he remembered the sleepless nights, the doubts, the fear of failing him, the gratitude mixed with quiet pain. The cold truth is this: Lombardi made Bart Starr a champion. Lombardi also carved into him a lifelong pressure that never truly faded. And Starr never forgave himself for the moments when he felt he did not meet Lombardi's impossible standard. Their bond built a dynasty. It also shaped one of the most demanding emotional tests of Starr's life. Before Bart Starr became the trusted leader of the Packers dynasty, he lived through years of quiet doubt from the very men he later led to championships. Many fans imagine Starr as the unquestioned commander from the beginning. The truth is far harsher. His early seasons in Green Bay were filled with skepticism from teammates who saw him as too soft-spoken, too polite, and too reserved to survive in a violent league. Their lack of faith carved deep marks on his confidence and helped shape the leader he eventually became. Starr arrived as a 17th-round afterthought. Most players on the roster had been selected long before him and carried reputations he did not possess. In the locker room, hierarchy draft position meant credibility. Starr had none. His quiet Southern manners made him appear timid. Some veterans believed he lacked the fire needed to command a huddle. Others whispered that he was too fragile to withstand the brutality of professional football. The doubts spread slowly but consistently. His early performances did little to change those perceptions. The Packers were a struggling team with weak protection and chaotic coaching. Starr absorbed heavy hits and made mistakes that seemed to confirm his doubters. In meetings, a few teammates rolled their eyes when he spoke. In games, some linemen questioned his audibles. The pressure intensified when quarterbacks with bigger arms or louder personalities arrived. Starr felt he had to prove himself every single day, not just to coaches but to the men standing beside him. The transformation began when Lombardi arrived. Lombardi's structured system slowly revealed Starr's strengths. He prepared obsessively. He studied defenses with monastic intensity. He walked into huddles with calm focus while others panicked. Over time, these traits began to shift opinions. Teammates noticed his consistency. They noticed how he never blamed others, even when hit relentlessly. They noticed how he treated every player with respect, whether star receiver or backup lineman. Leadership slowly grew from humility and endurance rather than charisma. One moment became the turning point. Late in a tense game, Starr took a brutal hit that left the stadium silent. Many assumed he would not get up. Instead, he rose slowly and returned to the huddle with a steady voice. He called the next play with clarity, as if nothing had happened. Something changed that day. The men who doubted him saw toughness they had never expected. The whispers faded. The respect grew. By the time the Packers reached their championship form, Starr had become the anchor everyone relied on. Yet the early years of doubt stayed with him. Even after the trophies, he remembered the players who questioned him. He remembered the sideways glances, the unspoken judgment, the feeling that he had to earn every ounce of trust. He never showed resentment, but the memory remained. It fueled his discipline. It hardened his resolve. It shaped the quiet steel beneath his calm exterior. In his later years, Starr admitted privately that those early doubts cut deeply. He never confronted any teammate about it. He simply outperformed the criticisms and outlasted the skeptics. But the truth remained painful. Before they admired him, many did not believe in him at all. The cold truth is this: Bart Starr became a respected leader only after surviving a locker room that once saw him as unfit for the role. The doubt forged him. The disbelief strengthened him. But the bitterness of those memories never completely disappeared. Before Bart Starr became the calm general of championship drives, he endured a humiliation that followed him for decades. Long before the trophies and the iconic moments, he faced a reality few fans remember. He was benched repeatedly, sometimes without explanation, sometimes in ways that cut straight into his pride. These early years shaped a wound he carried quietly through the rest of his life. During his first seasons, Green Bay was a place of confusion. Coaches changed frequently. Systems shifted without warning. The team lacked direction. Quarterbacks rotated almost weekly. Starr found himself in a cycle of being promoted, then demoted, then forgotten. One week he started. The next, he stood on the sideline watching a less prepared quarterback take his snaps. Each benching felt personal, even when coaches insisted it was strategic. The humiliation deepened because he never understood the full reasons. Some coaches believed he lacked strength. Others thought he was too quiet to command a huddle. A few simply preferred louder, more forceful personalities. Starr listened to their critiques in silence, but each decision pierced deeper. He wanted to lead. He believed he could lead. Yet each benching told him he was not trusted. not wanted, not ready. One particular game became the symbol of that pain. Early in the season, Starr had executed a near-flawless first half. He managed the offense with precision. He avoided mistakes. He controlled the clock. Yet, at halftime, the coach pulled him aside and told him he was being replaced. No explanation. No reasoning. The second half unfolded with Starr standing on the sideline as the offense collapsed under poor decisions and turnovers. The sting of that moment never left him. It felt like a verdict on his worth. These experiences shaped how he approached football. While other quarterbacks played with outward confidence, Starr played with a quiet fear of being replaced. He studied harder. He drilled longer. He memorized every detail of Lombardi's system because he never wanted to give a coach a reason to doubt him again. His leadership style grew from those early humiliations. Calm under pressure, emotion in control, mistakes erased immediately. He built a reputation not from natural charisma, but from a relentless desire to never feel that sting again. When Lombardi took over the team, the pattern did not disappear instantly. Lombardi evaluated Starr harshly. He tested him with verbal challenges. He reminded him constantly that the starting job was never guaranteed. Starr responded by pushing deeper into discipline. Over time, he proved he belonged not through speeches but through precision. The humiliation of the early years became fuel for the championships that followed, but the emotional cost lingered. Starr rarely spoke about those benchings, but those closest to him knew the memories stayed raw. In interviews late in life, he reflected on his early seasons with careful words. He acknowledged the uncertainty, the frustration, and the feeling of being overlooked. The calm demeanor people celebrated came from surviving that psychological battle. It was a calm built on scars. The cold truth is this: Bart Starr's greatness was forged in the lonely moments when he stood on the sideline, helmet in hand, watching others take the position he believed he had earned. The humiliation shaped him. It sharpened his mind. It hardened his commitment. But it also left a quiet bitterness he carried to his final years. After retiring as one of the most admired quarterbacks of his time, Bart Starr stepped into a role that carried a cruel expectation. Fans believed he would succeed simply because he had been great on the field. They imagined the calm, legendary quarterback transforming into a visionary coach. They expected discipline. They expected strategy. They expected the return of Green Bay's past glory. What followed instead became one of the most painful chapters of his life, a chapter that left a bitterness he carried into old age. Starr took over a wounded franchise. The roster lacked depth. The front office was unstable. The shadow of Lombardi still hung over every decision. Many believed Starr's temperament would bring order. Others doubted he had the forceful personality needed to rebuild a dynasty. Starr walked into the job with optimism and a deep sense of responsibility. He wanted to restore the pride of Green Bay because he felt he owed it to the fans, the franchise, and the legacy he helped build. Reality struck quickly. The team struggled. Draft picks failed to develop. Injuries mounted. Games slipped away by narrow margins. Starr found himself making decisions that fans and the media dissected relentlessly. His calm leadership on the field did not translate easily to the sidelines. Where he once relied on instinct, he now had to rely on judgment of others. Where he once executed plays, he now had to manage personalities. He discovered that coaching required a different kind of authority, and he struggled to impose it. The criticism grew harsh. Newspapers questioned his qualifications. Former players doubted his strategy. Talk radio hosts criticized his decisions with growing intensity. For a man who had built his reputation on steadiness, the criticism pierced deeply. Starr remained courteous in public, but privately the frustration grew. He felt he was being judged not just as a coach, but as a symbol of the team's fading glory. Each losing season added weight to the disappointment. One moment defined the breaking point. After a crucial late-season loss, reporters surrounded him with questions about his future. Starr tried to remain composed, but his voice trembled slightly when he said he believed in his players and believed the team was improving. Cameras captured the strain. To many fans, it was a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a man known for composure. To Starr, it was a sign that the job was consuming him. When the Packers finally dismissed him, the pain was deep. He had poured years into rebuilding the team and felt he had failed those who believed in him. Even decades later, friends said the disappointment never fully left him. He often spoke with respect about the players he coached, but he rarely discussed his firing. The contrast between his playing career and coaching career became a quiet wound that shaped his final years. The cold truth is this: Bart Starr achieved greatness as a quarterback, but lived with the bitterness of failing in the role he hoped would define his second life in football. He wanted to restore Green Bay's glory. Instead, he left the sideline with a sense of unfinished purpose and a hurt that never completely healed. In the last chapter of Bart Starr's life, there was one truth he carried more heavily than any defeat on the field or any criticism as a coach. It was a regret that stayed with him long after the cheering ended and long after the stadium lights dimmed. A regret tied not to a single mistake, but to the legacy he wished he had shaped more completely, more honestly, more courageously. It followed him quietly into his 80s and became the deepest unresolved weight in his final years. Starr had spent a lifetime defined by calm discipline. He kept emotions contained. He avoided conflict. He protected others before protecting himself. But this gentleness also created distance. Many of the men he admired most never heard the full truth of what they meant to him. Many of the young quarterbacks he mentored never received the guidance he wished he had given. Many of the fans who adored him never saw the vulnerable heart behind the gentlemanly image. Starr built a legacy of quiet heroism, but that same quietness left important words unspoken. His greatest regret centered on the players who came after him. Starr wanted to be the mentor he never had. He knew the pain of being overlooked. He knew the fear of not fitting into a demanding system. He knew the burden of playing under the shadow of legends. Yet, as a coach and later as an executive advisor, he struggled to express the deeper lessons. He gave encouragement. He offered wisdom. But he often held back the personal stories that could have changed the path of younger athletes. Stories of doubt. Stories of insecurity. Stories of the emotional cost of greatness. He feared that revealing these truths might undermine his image or distract from the professionalism he valued. Only in late life did he admit that silence could sometimes wound as deeply as criticism. Another part of this regret came from his relationship with the fans of Green Bay. Starr loved them. He admired their loyalty. He appreciated their devotion. Yet he always felt he had failed them during his coaching years. Even decades later, he struggled to accept that they still viewed him with respect, despite the losing seasons. The gap between how they saw him and how he saw himself became a private battle. Starr wanted to give them more victories, more hope, more pride. His inability to deliver that weighed heavily on him. It was a burden no championship ring could erase. In interviews near the end of his life, Starr hinted at this internal struggle. His voice softened when he spoke about his playing career. It hardened slightly when he mentioned his coaching years. The contrast revealed a man who still felt the weight of disappointment long after the world had forgiven him. He knew he had been a great quarterback, but he feared he had fallen short as a leader in his second act. The regret shaped the way he reflected on his legacy. It made his triumphs feel incomplete. Yet the most personal regret was one he rarely shared. Starr wished he had told more people how deeply he cared. Teammates who inspired him, coaches who challenged him, fans who believed in him even when he doubted himself. He lived a life of dignity, but also restraint. Only in his final years did he realize that some truths should have been spoken aloud. Some gratitude should have been expressed. Some forgiveness should have been offered. The silence became its own shadow. The cold truth is this: the legend of Bart Starr was built on calm leadership and stoic strength. But the man behind the legend carried a regret that no trophy could fix. He wished he had shared more of himself. He wished he had been more open, more honest, more vulnerable. It was the final, unfinished chapter of a life lived with grace and quiet courage. Behind every great quarterback stands a backup who lives in silence. For Bart Starr, that man was Zeke Bratkowski. His name rarely appears in highlight reels. His face seldom shows up in documentaries. Yet for years he stood just behind Starr, ready to step in at a moment's notice. Their relationship became one of the most unusual and revealing dynamics of the Packers dynasty. A bond built on trust and competition. A partnership that carried equal measures of loyalty and pressure. Bratkowski had been a starter earlier in his career. He arrived in Green Bay, knowing he would never escape Starr's shadow. Instead of resentment, he chose professionalism. He studied the same film. He prepared for the same pressure. He absorbed the same expectations. Starr respected him not only as a teammate, but as a mirror reflecting the standard he needed to maintain. Every week, Zeke pushed him without saying a word. Every practice reminded Starr that one mistake could put Bratkowski under center. Their most iconic moment came during the 1965 Western Conference playoff when Starr was injured early. Bratkowski stepped in with icy efficiency. He completed key throws. He guided the offense. He kept Green Bay alive. Starr watched from the sideline, knowing that Zeke had temporarily taken his place. The emotional conflict was sharp. Pride in his teammate, fear of being replaced, gratitude for being rescued, pressure to reclaim the position, all mixed into a single afternoon. Starr later admitted that Bratkowski's presence drove him to higher discipline. Zeke was the reminder that even legends could be replaced. He was the quiet shadow behind the dynasty. The teammate Starr admired deeply, yet also feared in a way he rarely acknowledged. Their bond revealed the fragile line between partnership and competition in the life of a quarterback. Bart Starr's story is often told as a smooth arc of discipline and triumph. The quiet quarterback who mastered the moment. The gentleman who brought dignity to a brutal game. The steady leader who made Green Bay the heart of football's golden age. But beneath that polished surface lived a journey shaped far more by conflict than calm. His life was not a straight line of success. It was a landscape carved by doubt, pressure, disappointment, and the hidden truths he carried until his final breath. To understand Starr fully, one must return to the crossroads where these forces collided and molded the man behind the legend. His rise began in obscurity. He entered the league as a 17th round pick with no expectations. The humility of that beginning never left him. It stayed in every huddle, every meeting room, every quiet nod of respect to teammates and coaches. But it also created a sense of caution. Starr lived with the awareness that nothing in football was guaranteed. That fragility shaped his leadership style. He refused to command through anger. He refused to treat teammates with the cruelty he once received. His power came from patience and clarity. Then came Lombardi. Their bond began with tension. Starr learned early that genius could be both inspiring and unbearable. Lombardi's relentless demand for perfection forced Starr to evolve. He learned to read defenses with near mathematical precision. He learned to control the pace of a game like a conductor guiding an orchestra. The championships they won together became symbols of mastery. Yet behind each triumph was a man carrying the emotional toll of fulfilling someone else's impossible expectations. Success became both validation and burden. The early years of benchings also shaped his resilience. The humiliation of standing on the sideline after being pulled from a game lingered in his memory long after the trophies. Those moments sharpened his discipline. They created a fear of complacency that pushed him to prepare harder than any other player on the roster. They also planted a seed of quiet bitterness. Even in later life, when discussing his early career, Starr chose his words carefully, but the strain in his voice revealed the pain he still remembered. The skepticism from teammates added another layer of complexity. The young quarterback, who seemed too polite, too reserved, too gentle, lived under the weight of his own locker room's doubts. He turned their criticism into fuel. When he rose to become the leader of the dynasty, the contrast between who he was and who he became told a deeper truth. Starr did not inherit confidence. He earned it. He built it piece by piece through discipline, persistence, and unwavering control under pressure. Then came his years as a head coach. The return to Green Bay was supposed to be poetic, the legend returning to restore the franchise he helped build. Instead, it became the source of his greatest disappointment. The losing seasons, the criticism, the public scrutiny all contrasted painfully with the calm image he had carried as a player. Starr learned that leadership from the sideline was a different world. He struggled not because he lacked intelligence, but because his quiet steadiness could not overcome the fractured structure of the team he inherited. The pain of those years stayed with him even into old age. It was one of the few battles he could not win. The presence of Zeke Bratkowski revealed another hidden truth. Starr was not only a leader, but also a man constantly aware of the fine line between security and replacement. Their partnership exposed the duality of a quarterback's life: brotherhood and rivalry, loyalty and fear, support and pressure. Starr understood that the position he held was never completely his. The reminder sharpened his focus, but also reinforced the emotional strain that followed him throughout his career. And at the center of it all was Starr's quiet regret, the recognition that he left many words unsaid and many feelings unshared. He wished he had shown more vulnerability. He wished he had opened himself more to teammates, the young players he mentored, and the fans who adored him. The calm that made him so dignified also kept parts of him hidden. In his final years, he understood that leadership built on silence could leave emotional gaps. That truth became the most personal burden he carried. When viewed together, the 5 hidden truths reveal a life shaped by more than championships. They show a man defined by internal battles, the strain of perfection, the doubt of teammates, the humiliation of early failures, the bitterness of coaching disappointments, the unspoken regret of missed connections. These conflicts did not diminish him. They made him human. They made him deeper than the image fans saw on television. They created the emotional foundation for the leadership Green Bay celebrated. Beyond the trophies and the iconic moments, Bart Starr's legacy lies in the resilience he built through quiet struggle. The frozen triumphs, the silent endurance, the calm in storms that would have broken lesser men. He stood at the center of a dynasty not because life had been easy for him, but because he carried the scars with dignity. He faced pressure with steadiness. He transformed doubt into discipline. He turned pain into clarity. That is the true power of Bart Starr's story. He did not lead because he wanted glory. He led because he believed responsibility mattered more than recognition. He stepped into the cold when everything was at stake, not for applause, but because others depended on him. His hidden truths did not weaken his legacy. They defined it. They gave it weight. They gave it meaning. And when he passed away in 2019 at the age of 85, the world remembered him not only for the championships, but for the quiet strength that carried him through every unseen battle. His life stands as a reminder that greatness is often built in silence, and that the deepest legacies are shaped not by victories, but by the struggles that come before them. Bart Starr's journey reveals more than the story of a championship quarterback. It is a portrait of a man who carried doubt, pressure, disappointment, and quiet resilience through every chapter of his life. His hidden truths show that even the calmest leaders face private storms. Even the most respected legends carry wounds no one sees. And even a dynasty is built on moments of fear and uncertainty that shape greatness from within. These revelations invite a deeper question about the nature of leadership and the cost of becoming an icon. Now that you have walked through the pressures he endured, the betrayals he survived, the humiliations he overcame, and the regrets he carried into old age, it is your turn to reflect. Which of Bart Starr's hidden truths surprised you the most? Which moment changed the way you understand his legacy? Was it the strain of Lombardi's perfection? The doubt of teammates who never believed in him? The early benchings that nearly broke him? The disappointment of his coaching years? Or the regret that lived with him long after he left the field? Your perspective matters because history in football is shaped not only by facts, but by the way fans understand the humanity behind the legends. If you believe Starr's story deserves to be remembered in its full depth and complexity, share your thoughts. Join the conversation. Tell others which moment revealed the real Bart Starr to you. If you found meaning in uncovering these hidden truths and want more stories that explore the unseen battles behind football's golden age, subscribe to NFL Hidden Truths. This channel brings to light the untold struggles and defining conflicts that shaped the greatest figures in the sport. Their triumphs are remembered. Their secrets are often forgotten. Here we bring them back into the light.